Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Wake Up Roasting. It is Sunday, football day. Hope you guys are ready. But before we kick off, I'd like to show you guys how to roast a little bit of coffee this morning. So as last week we roasted some Sumatra. This week we have a treat. We get to roast some Uganda. Uganda is actually an African country. It is just west of Kenya. Much like Sumatra, it has some great weather for growing coffee. It's kind of along that green coffee belt. So I'm excited. This is a pretty good coffee. A little bit different in the profile that we had with the Sumatra, but it should be good. Before we get started, I'm just going to go ahead and quickly share this over to another page of mine, so bear with me. Let's see here. If my computer decides to load. There we are. All right, almost there. Bum, bum, bum. And boom. All right, so let's jump right into it. I already have my roaster kind of heating up so we can get a jump start on that. Let's quickly take a quick temperature with our infrared thermometer into our roaster here. All right, let's see. We're hovering between just over 400. So I'm gonna lower that heat a bit. Actually, I'm gonna turn it off and let it kind of cool for a minute before we get started. Just to start off, hope you guys are all having a great day. If you can hear me okay, if the video looks all right, give it a thumbs up, a little heart, whatever have you. Make sure that everybody can hear me, everybody can see me, and we are golden to go. And we'll jump right into it. So let me just kind of take a quick temperature profile here. All right, we are right over that 400 degree mark. So I'm gonna quick write that down, that we started at about 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, we got our little profile sheet here. We got our Nuvo Eco hand roaster, which this thing is pretty handy, pretty great. We got our Gas One camping stove, our infrared thermometer. I got my little cooling tray set up, which is just a fan that's gonna push hot air up for me, or cold air up to cool the beans once we're done roasting. Turn this back on quick. All right, let's get one more temperature reading before we drop our beans in. All right, perfect, right around 400. So this time I have a timer with me, so we are good to go. I don't have to rely on my computer's time. So we'll just drop these beans in. Oh, and let me try to give you a quick preview of what those look like. Might be kind of hard to see on the camera, but we'll just drop those in. Start shaking, and I am going to start the timer. All right. Now, just like last time, every single minute we're going to take a temperature reading and we're going to kind of track our profile along the roast. This Uganda typically is roasted to a medium plus roast, so that's what we're going to kind of shoot for today. If you saw in the last cupping video of the Sumatra, when we tasted the Sumatra that we roasted, it actually turned out to be a medium roast, so that was awesome. We hit our mark on that, and so I'm hoping to do the same today. All right, so we'll just shake this up here, and we're going to be coming up on our first minute so that we can get our temperature reading. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to switch this to Celsius because, again, our temperature or our profile sheet is in Celsius. So we're at our first minute. All right, we're at about 95 degrees Celsius. That's not a bad start. You don't want to be too high, but at the same time, you don't want to be too low. Otherwise, you risk kind of dragging the roast out too long, which can lead to baking the coffee. So let's talk a little bit about Uganda while we do this here. So Uganda, many people may not know it for coffee, but it is actually the 8th largest coffee growing country in the world. So they actually produce a lot of coffee and export quite a bit of coffee. Let's see here. We're almost at 2 minutes now. A little bit more. Heat looks good. It's a little bit cooler this morning. As you can see, I got the hat on, I got a sweatshirt on. It's about 60 degrees. It was in the 50s a couple hours ago. So I'm trying to stay warm while I do this. All right, and we're right at about 1:15, so we're moving up quick. Don't want to move up too quick, so I'm going to kind of raise my roaster up just a little bit, kind of mitigate some of that heat transfer. And like I was talking about in the first roasting video, we're relying basically on conventional heat. There's no airflow creating a convectional heat, so we're going to be relying on radiant heat from the beans touching each other, as well as the beans touching the roaster to penetrate and heat those beans. Like I said, Uganda has great weather for coffee. What we hopefully are going to expect from this roast after we cup it and taste it and try it is more of a mild acidity, kind of similar to the Sumatra, kind of a dry finish on the end, a rich body, kind of a buttery texture, kind of like cocoa powder, molasses, some cherry flavors. It's a sweetness to it, a sweet coffee, which just thinking about it makes me wish it was already roasted and we could try it. But that'll be in a few days yet. All right. So we're at about 120. Kind of slow down a little bit. All right. Gotta pay attention to what I'm doing here. Make sure this comes out good. So it's important to keep shaking these beans. When we roasted the Sumatra, we had a little bit of scorching on them, and that's just due to the fact that I let the beans kind of sit on parts of the roaster for too long. It still turned out great. It was actually one of the best cups of coffee that I've had from my own roasts yet. So I was actually really happy with that. I drank that whole thing very quickly that we cupped. It was awesome. All right. Coming up right around 4 minutes here. My pen keeps rolling away from me. That's okay. All right, and if you have any questions on anything that I'm using today, please let me know. I will have links in the description on where all this stuff can be picked up. So we were just at about 130 degrees Celsius there. Moving along nice. And again, we're going to be shooting for more of a medium to medium plus with this roast. I'm looking for about 18 to 19% weight loss from the final product. So again, we're starting with 75 grams, just like we did this with the Sumatra. That's kind of the limit that I like to use with this roaster. Anything above that, because the beans will actually start to expand. It gets a little crowded in the roaster once the roast progresses. So I don't like to really go over 75 grams. It's kind of a sweet spot that I found. And so by the end of it, I'm hoping to get maybe around 60, 61 grams for the final product. All right, let's get another reading here. All right. So about 135. So we slow down a little bit. I kind of pump that heat just a little bit. Now the density of this Uganda, because the density is definitely going to play a factor when hand roasting. It's very similar to the Sumatra we roasted last week. It's got about 0.69 grams per milliliter. The Sumatra was right around that, right about 0.7. So it's got a very similar density. It's not too high. There are definitely denser beans out there that I found are a lot harder to roast. I don't know if you can hear my cat. She gets mad when I come outside and don't let her out. And she likes to let me know. All right, so we're coming up on 6 minutes here. All right. Getting some jumpy readings. Thing with the infrared thermometer, it takes a temperature reading whatever little bit of that laser is touching it, and so different parts of the bean are going to have a little bit different heats. That's just one thing you're going to get with hand roasting with the conventional heat. But we were at about 140 there, so we're kind of leveling off. I'm going to try and pick it up just a little bit. So we're going to bump that heat up just a tad, keep it closer to that flame, and move it along. Again, this is also my first time roasting in this cool of weather. Usually I've been roasting all summer in the heat. So this is a little bit cooler outside, so it's going to want to cool down our roaster. But we're going to try and prevent that by just adding a little bit more gas flame to it. All right, coming up right at 7 minutes here. All right, 150. So we bumped up a little bit. That's kind of the rate I want to go. It's about 10 degrees Celsius a minute right now until we get towards the end when we can level it off. I'm trying to see where we're at here. All right, so we're not quite to bread yet. So the coffee will go through a phase where it starts to give off moisture, it starts to release a lot of its moisture. It'll start to yellow, and then from yellow, it will go into what we call bread, which is a slight browning. That's when the Maillard reaction starts to take place. And you'll get this like baking bread type of smell to it. Now, I didn't touch on it in the last video, but the Maillard reaction is very important when it comes to roasting coffee. It's the reaction in which sugars start to break down into smaller and smaller parts and get this caramelization effect, which is what we know as roasted coffee. Actually, the same exact thing happens when you put bread in a toaster. When bread goes from just your normal old bread to a nice piece of toast, that is actually the same reaction. It's a Maillard reaction. So we like to break down those sugars and we get that nice caramelization and that roasted profile. That Maillard reaction doesn't start to take place till later, once the coffee has released the moisture it needs to start breaking down the sugars, and it will go from an endothermic reaction to an exothermic reaction, meaning it's going to be absorbing heat to giving off its own heat. All right, and so we're right at about 160 right now, moving along nice. I'm hoping to maybe make this roast about 16 minutes at most. I want to try and shorten my roast a little bit. Because the longer you start to roast the coffee, the more risk you are at for baking the beans, which is just going to leave kind of a stale taste to it. See if I can't get a good reading here. It's kind of jumping all over the place. All right, so 165. I'll bump that heat up a little bit just to keep her on track. Now, a little thing about Uganda. Typically, Uganda is known for its Robusta coffee that grows natively there. However, this is Arabica coffee. This is what I normally roast, is all Arabica coffee, and that's typically what you drink at home. I will do a future video on the differences between Robusta and Arabica. I'm not going to get too much into it today because there's a lot to talk about. Alright, this cooler weather is really trying to slow down this roast. You can already tell. Our profile is not looking as nice as last week, but that's okay. It's all about how the coffee tastes when you drink it. That's the most important part. All right, 170. Took me a while to get a good reading there. Now let me see if I can't get a bean out for you guys to take a look without burning myself. There we go. So you can start to see it's getting, oh, dropped it. Oh, now more coming out. It's getting, starting to brown up. It's more yellowish. It's lost that green hue. that we typically find with the green coffee. Oh, jeez. All right. Time to put the tinfoil back in. We're losing beans. All right. I have a little piece of tinfoil in the back here so that doesn't happen, so they don't fall out. Oh, we missed our temperature reading. Let's grab one quick. Looks like it's kind of trying to stall out a little bit, which we do not want. I'm seeing 175. All right, 175. I'm gonna bump that heat up just a tad because it's starting to really trying to cool down. You guys get to see here first the learning experience that I'm having with roasting in a little bit cooler weather. Typically by now I'd like to be probably 10 or 15 degrees higher than I am right now. So we're a little slower on pace than what I'd like to be. That's okay. Again, we'll find out in the cupping video later on this week on how this coffee actually tastes after we roast it. All right, thanks for everybody for tuning in. Glad to see you guys here. I want to know how many of you are drinking coffee this morning, and if so, do you know what kind of coffee you're drinking, where it's from? I'd be interested to hear. All right, so we're starting to move into that. Yep, we're moving into that bread phase. Starts to smell like when you're baking a loaf of bread. All right, we're at 180. I missed a minute there, so we're starting to level out, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to try and do my best to get this heat up. I have my stove really hot right now, so hopefully that can counteract what the roast is trying to do. And sometimes, you guys, you just get a bad roast, or you just get a roast that doesn't do what you want it to do, and that's okay. It's all part of it. It's all part of the learning process. All right, so we're right at 14 minutes. Let's see if I can't. There we go. This isn't the best bean to grab. It's kind of a little one, but you might be able to start to see starting to brown up. It's not caramelizing quite yet, but it's about to start. This is the bread phase. It's hard to smell one bean, but definitely smells like you're baking some bread, or it's starting to get that roasting smell to it. No, we were at about 185 on that last one, so we're moving up a little bit slower than I'd like. We're probably going to go past that 16-minute mark I was shooting for. We got a little bit of a breeze coming in that doesn't help. We're going to try our best to get through it. African blend. Nice, good choice. This is actually technically an African coffee as well. All right, so we have another 185, which is not the greatest thing, but we're gonna keep going. We're gonna see how this turns out. For those of you who don't know, 185 is about 360 some degrees Fahrenheit. I'm trying to get her up past 400. So I'm gonna let this just kind of sit on the roaster. I would rather have a little bit of scorching right now than actually having a flatlined roast, because that's gonna give us problems. So we're at about 16 minutes. This thing's getting really jumpy on me. All right, 190. So right now, rather than continuously shaking, I'm just gonna shake every couple seconds, allow those beans to actually touch that really hot roaster, and hopefully those parts of the bean will heat up and they'll touch other beans, and those beans will heat up and it'll just help us along the way a little bit. All right, I can start to smell it. Got some chaff coming out, which is just the skin of the bean. All right, 195. I'm gonna really try and push this up into the 200s here. All right, you guys are seeing firsthand that roasting coffee at home by hand. It's not always the easiest thing, but it's not that difficult either. Sometimes your roast just doesn't go the way you want it to, and that happens. That happens in even the biggest manufacturers that roast. You know, sometimes the roast does not go the way it wants it to. The roaster doesn't act the way you want it to act. That's just part of life. But again, it all comes down to how the coffee tastes. Does it make you happy? And if it does, then who cares what happened during the roast, right? Oh, I heard a pop. All right, so we're right at about 200. That's good. We're starting to catch back up. So we're gonna be hitting first crack here any second. I'm just gonna move over here for a split second. I gotta push this little handle back up. So I'll definitely try and get you guys an audio. I know it came through pretty well last time when it comes to first crack, which is where the rated brown to light roasts, when you hit first crack, you hear popping and it almost sounds kind of like popcorn. Oh, there was a pop. So it wants to go. It wants to roast. All right, we got a good amount of smoke coming out. We're at about 205. I'm noticing that this Uganda is actually hitting first crack quite a bit sooner, or quite a bit higher temp, I should say, than the Sumatra did. Now we're taking quite a long time to roast this coffee, so I have a feeling that in our next video, when we do the cupping of this, we're gonna notice that. I could be wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but we're gonna find out. All right, we're hitting in first crack now. Again, we're getting a lot of wind all of a sudden, which is not the best. And we're coming up on 20 minutes for roast time, which is quite long, guys. I usually like to hit around 15, 16 minutes, but we're really pushing it. I'm hoping this coffee doesn't turn out baked. Again, we'll find out in the next video. You'll have to watch that. All right, right at 210. I'm gonna push this to about 215, 220. And then we'll drop it. I'm gonna pull out a bean quick, see how she looks. Or two, or three. They're very hot. Ow. That's really burning my finger right now. Starting to get roasted. Oh, I forgot to put the tin foil back in. All right, 215 there. All right, I'm gonna drop it here soon because we're really pushing this roast quite long. Yeah, this wind, I got this wind coming right at us here. It is not doing good for this roast, but that is okay. I don't want to keep going too much longer here. We'll stop right at this next temperature reading. It's probably not going to be a medium roast. It'll probably be closer to a light roast. Let's see how it tastes. So I'm going to quickly turn my fan on. Get that pushing some air around. I want to quick get a reading of my actual roaster. Okay, that's good. The beans themselves. Yeah. All right, we're gonna drop it anyways. So we're gonna make sure we stir these up, get them cooled down. Got all that chaff coming out. Now, if this roast doesn't really pan out well, which I have a really good feeling it's not, or if it doesn't really taste that good when we do the cupping, I will definitely roast Uganda again, and we will get it right. Every now and again, you just get a roast that misbehaves. Our Sumatra, the profile came out really nice, tasted great, it was right along the time we were looking for. This Uganda, for whatever reason, again, I don't think it's the density, because it's around the same density as the Sumatra. So it shouldn't be a factor, but I think it has something to do with the wind that we were getting, which is going to cool the roaster down and take hot air away from the inside of the roaster, as well as just the cooler temperatures in general. All right, these beans are nice and cool. Awesome. Turn off our fan. We'll take a look. Okay, so definitely more of a light roast, which is okay. I actually enjoy light roasts. I'll try and get you a preview on what that kind of looks like here. We've got our roasted coffee. Dropping beans. Now, just like in the last video, first let me write down our temp and time. We ended at about 2:15-ish. And it was a whopping 21 minutes. That isn't crazy. That is not good. You don't want to go that long when you roast coffee. You typically want to be under 15 minutes. So we definitely went a lot longer than we should have. And there's a good chance we baked this coffee. That's okay. If anything, you guys get to see what happens when you bake your coffee, which you don't want to do. So like always, I'm going to break a bean open and give it a smell. Taste it. Not as bad as I thought it would be. You can tell it's definitely not developed as much as I would like it to be. The caramelization did not happen. The Maillard reaction did not happen as much as I would like. And the coffee was still getting hot. Let me try this again. Not terrible. Not terrible. We'll have to see when we brew it, when we do the cupping, when we give it a taste. That's when we'll really find out how we did here. But you guys got to see firsthand what it's like when a roast goes sideways, which happens. Seriously, it happens every so often. You just get a roast that doesn't want to behave. It starts to. So here, let me go into the curve here. Let me show you our profile sheet so I can tell you what I'm talking about. So we started here. We had a nice kind of rate of rise to start, but then you can see we started to level off early, which is not something you want to do. I would have liked to keep this going up like this, and then leveled off right at the end up here. But we leveled off too soon, and it started to continue to kind of just slowly rise up. And we ended up at about 21 minutes. So about 5-6 minutes longer than I typically would want to push a roast. And we didn't even get it to a medium roast. It's still into pretty much a light roast. I'm gonna eat another bean. because I'm really trying to figure out how bad I screw this up. I mean, it's not terrible. I still think it'd be a lot better than a lot of coffee you buy at the store, because a lot of times that coffee's been roasted 6 months to a year ago, and it loses a lot of its flavor over that time. But we're gonna give this probably 5-6 days. I think I'll come back maybe Friday again and do the brewing, the cupping of it. It's really good to let this sit for a few days so you can start to develop the flavors in the bean. You know, if you roast a coffee and you try it like, let's say 2 days after you roast it, and then you try it again 6 days, 7 days after you roast it, you will definitely notice a change in the taste and the flavor. It's not terrible. Not great, but not terrible. All right, well, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer them for you. Anything you want to know, coffee related, roasting, brewing, what have you, lay it on me. Also, I'm thinking of trying to do this roasting maybe every Sunday morning. I'm trying to get more consistent with it, and then I'll probably do the tasting of that like on a Friday. It seems like it would work right now. Right now I'm working like 7 days a week, so it's been kind of hard to figure out how to do this and how to get consistent with it, but I think I'm going to try and make that commitment, which would be good. And I don't want to do videos too late in the evening because I don't have great lights out here. You probably saw that in the last cupping video. So I'm going to try and get it when there's a little more daylight and you guys can see me better. Thanks, Spencer. I appreciate it. Glad you enjoyed it. Stay tuned because I'm going to be doing more of these. Try to explain as much as I can. If you yourself know a lot about coffee and you're like, hey, you missed something, let me know because I'll touch on it. Definitely touch on it. I think I covered mostly everything. Again, I will do a video in the future explaining the differences between Robusta and Arabica coffee. Just briefly, I know Robusta has quite a bit more caffeine than Arabica. Most of the coffee you drink, though, is Arabica coffee. Uganda, however, the native coffee plant that just grows naturally there is Robusta, but they imported Arabica coffee and now they grow that there. This is the Arabica version of that Ugandan bean. I really enjoy African coffees, coffees from Ethiopia especially, Kenya, Uganda. Those regions have some really, really nice coffees, some really flavorful coffees. All right, I gotta stop eating these beans because otherwise I'm not gonna have any to brew later. Okay, done. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Again, if you have any questions, shoot me questions in the comments. I will get back to you, even if it's not on this live stream now, I will respond. Also, if you're interested in anything that I have here, the setup, if you want to get into roasting coffee yourself, let me know. I'll help you out. Also, I'll have links in the description to where you can get all this stuff. I have also included links to where I get my profile sheets. Again, you could probably find a better one. Just Google coffee roasting profile sheet. But this is the one I use. It's got nice little things where you can put like how much you started with, what you ended with, yada, 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 your temperatures all around, what have you. So it's just a nice way to keep track about what you're doing. This will definitely go into my stack of profile sheets on ones that were not great. And if I can go back and taste the Uganda that we roasted, and I can say, yeah, that didn't taste that well, and I can look at this and say, that's why. Or it tasted good, and I can be like, all right, this is an exception. You know, it's just nice to have this reference. So thank you all for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great day. You know, I'm sure you guys got big football plans, watching football, got the game going on. You can see, go Vikings, woohoo, Skol. So didn't want to intrude on any of that, so I decided to do this early. And again, it's called Wake Up Roasting, so wake up roasting. All right, well, have a fantastic day, everybody, and we will see you in a few days.